After 7 seasons, 110 episodes, and over 360 hours in MLB The Show 23, we have finally brought the Oakland Athletics a World Series championship. And it's been one of the most satisfying series that I've put together. Starting with the team that everybody knew was the worst team in baseball to now becoming the best. What a run, everybody! Our goals are now complete, but this series is not quite finished yet. Because now that we have this team and these players, of course I want to see how the rest of their careers play out. I don't think there's going to be year-to-year saves in the new MLB The Show, and my goal is to wrap the series up ahead of that game's release, which is set to be March 19th. So I'm looking at about a month more of working on this series and seeing how much more time we can go through, and if we can add any World Series to the one we already have, and what other storylines play out for this team. I'm excited to continue managing, but the series is definitely going to change. My plan is to do as much as we can until about a week or so until the new game comes out, at which time I'd want to do a long-term sim to take us to the end of players' careers like Joe Michael, Yusniel Cruz, and maybe there will be somebody else whose career we want to follow as we move towards this next chapter of the series. Thank you for all your support in a really satisfying franchise and the first big MLB franchise on this channel. I figured out how I like to do my MLB content over here, and it's helped become one of the best series I think I've put together, and a series I've really enjoyed working on for nearly a full year. Now, my plan this year is to kind of get back to doing more football content, and I don't know yet what I want to do with the new upcoming EA college football game, and then I'd like to get an earlier start to Madden on the channel when the next game comes out. So I'm not sure yet exactly what is going to happen for MLB content beyond the A's franchise. That's still something I have to figure out, but until we get to the next thing, A's franchise is still here, and I want to see what the future holds for this team. And we'll be going through an off-season today. I plan on making a couple moves, and I want to see us continue to win. I'm still managing the team, seriously like I have the entire time, but I'm not sure how much more I'll be playing in this series. I did want to go through our playoff stats before these ultimately clear. Of course, Yusniel Cruz is your playoff MVP, and although the game told us that Miguel Cabrera was World Series MVP, we all know that doesn't make any sense, and it should be Yusniel Cruz. So I'll be considering him the World Series MVP and the Rookie of the Year, and perhaps the new face of this roster after a truly dominant postseason run. The season began with him really finding his footing, and he didn't have like the best first 5 or 6 months of the year. September is when everything took off, and until he hit like 7 homers in 7 days, it looked like the Rookie of the Year would instead be Henry Vasquez. Instead, it's Cruz who finished the season stronger than anybody and went into the postseason and became our #1 offensive threat. Nobody had more than half of his RBIs, 6 home runs, 2 stolen bases to lead the team. He's without a doubt the team's MVP right now. It's amazing how many categories he led or tied for a lead in. I haven't really seen a player take control like this, other than maybe in my Titans franchise with, you'll remember Trayvon Randolph from last year, who was basically, if you could wrap up Randy Moss, Calvin Johnson, and all the greats into one. But of course, as much as I want to talk about Cruz, the entire pitching unit gave us a chance to pull off a really difficult road to the title. Our offense struggled, even Cruz at times did, but the pitching really never let us down. It was unbelievable how many good starts we had. We had a lot of quality starts in the postseason from Joe Michael and Logan Gilbert, and when the bullpen had to come into play, I mean, you look at guys like Aaron Ashby, Andre Palante, Eli Morgan, and Penn Murphy, who was 6 for 6 in save attempts. We've definitely built the best bullpen, especially this year, and a really good pitching staff at the same time. Things came together in such a unique way this year. We only had one blown save in the entire postseason, and that, I don't know what innings that will count for, if it can be just any time a reliever gives up the lead, but we had one in the entire postseason. If we had a lead, it was gonna stay there. Every game but the Seattle matchup here was a playoff game. We never allowed more than 5 runs in any of these games. That's unbelievable. 5 of these victories were by a single run, and it takes 11 to go all the way here starting in the division series. And one of the most unbelievable stats of them all, we were undefeated when we scored 3 runs or more. Every loss saw us score 2 or less. So now the question will become, after getting better each and every season in the franchise, where do we go from here? We've had the luxury of building around some of the best young talent in all of baseball, players who are not yet making the premium money that guys like Vladimir Guerrero or Logan Gilbert have. So eventually this is going to get more challenging, as Joe Michael will not be making $3.4 million for much longer. He is set to have one more year until free agency. So why don't we move on now to the offseason and start to make some moves for the following year. And after the title, after this run, our manager, Howard Barger, has decided to retire. We get the ring. Much of our coaching staff is about to be free agents as well. We didn't have many older players on the roster, so I don't anticipate any retirements there. Doesn't seem like there were any. I wish it would have given me a chance to see all the coaches I had before this, so I could maybe look to promote someone to the managing position. I just loaded up my backup save file to see if I could get the names of all of our coaches, and there wasn't anywhere to check in the tabs anywhere, so I guess I have to build a new staff and find a new manager for the future. We also have a pretty big list of free agents now, and we also have some players with options. So we start here with Miguel Vargas, and I have leaned towards keeping him around, even after a pretty weak postseason showing, but he's done a really good job these last 2 years, especially becoming an everyday impact player. Looks like 4.1 and 2.5 WAR during these regular seasons. Has position flexibility, and it's hard to see how this team fits together moving forward, so it's nice to have flexibility because there are a lot of guys coming up that you're going to want to get playing time. So Vargas is looking for, $11-12 million a year, and I do like that. Maybe not 5 years as much, but I'm down with 3. Royce Lewis, though, we're going to let walk. Wasn't a great year. I think we want to make room on the bench for another young player this year. Ken Waldichuk started a bunch of postseason games for us, and he's been as steady as they come, really, on this team. You know what you're getting with Kenny. He's a solid, 3 in a rotation. While I think about these signings, I also have to look at who we have down at AAA that could make an impact soon. But I don't know that there's anybody ready to replace that level he brings to the table. We have some prospects I like, Eddie Enriquez being one of the primary ones, and then we're hopeful for Cam Cope. This year didn't, go perfectly. He had an up and down year, numbers finished all right, so I lean towards keeping around Waldichuk. And I know it's been a while since we got to see a lot of our top prospects being in the postseason for a long time, but we have Manny Reyes, who didn't make the playoff roster because I screwed up the situation there, but we want to see him become a big league everyday player. And then for infielders, Robert Poisson, I think that I wanted to keep the Royce Lewis spot available for him. Then at third base, you're looking at Reggie Rankin, Marco Da Silva getting closer. I think that there's potential trade opportunities here as well. And then Geloff, Vargas, position flexible guys. Shortstop has Sweetie, Muncy, Julian Rodriguez, another potentially tradable prospect, now in his mid-20s. And then in the outfield, it's Cruz, Cabrera, and Don as the young guys. But do you think about keeping around Dylan Carlson just for the postseason play? I reduced his playing time this year to get Miguel Cabrera more playing time, and then when the postseason came around, Dylan Carlson came to play. His numbers, honestly, aren't even bad for last year. He's a 3.3 WAR player that I ended up removing playing time for because we had better options. And I know his numbers, 272, 362 on base is good, but it's streaky. He wasn't that every day. There were days where he was an above-average player and then stretches where he's far below average. This is just where the numbers end up. But honestly, outside of the guys already at the bigs, as far as outfielders go, there's not a lot to be confident in. Forrest Battle is getting closer, and I'm excited for him, but he's not there yet. He's probably a year behind that. So if we want to try trading some of these infielders, because we have way more depth there, getting an outfielder is an option. But again, the guys we have at the bigs are mostly young. 24, 21, 23, like trading for depth isn't even that necessary. I want to offer a 2 to 3 year contract here to Ken Waldichuk. The issue though is he wants to be an ace. I think he could be on like one of those Midwest teams that doesn't want to spend a ton of money, but he won't be here. And to bring him back, it's going to take a decent bit of cash. I almost wonder if I have to go let him test the open market and see what happens. I was thinking about doing the same as well as some of these other players just because I don't know if Vladdy's going to decline his option yet after the season he had, because he'd be set to make $17 million, which would pretty much cover Waldichuk's salary. But now I don't know if he'll pick that up or not. It's really hard to say. Franmil Reyes has been a dominant DH ever since he showed up, and I think I'd be willing to let him continue to mash here for a while. Man, he's not asking for the type of money I expected him to, but I think with a DH like him, you take it 1 year at a time because you don't know when the drop-off is going to be, and he offers next to little value outside of being that DH. So I'm cool for, around what he's asking. I'm going to go to 5.7, try to get him to accept. I think it should be, he should be asking for close to 2.5 times that. Then I forgot Rise. His deal was up now also. He's looking for a bit more than he was making previously, which was around $8 million a year. I know we have a lot of our available budget, but it gets really difficult here because that's not including like guys who are going to have arbitration salaries and whatnot. So you have to make these moves not knowing how much you really have. And then we have Dylan Carlson. We've talked about his playoff heroics, and his defense is excellent as well. I actually do want to offer him a deal, but again, I don't know if he's going to like this, and I don't know. Why doesn't he like the team quality? He's upset we're a contender? I have to go a bit more than the asking to make up for some of those negatives. But I think I will, because other than him, like I said, it's those 3 young outfielders with very little depth behind them, and we know Carlson's going to play great defense. I don't think I'd use the qualifying offer on anybody here. Waldichuk I even considered. That'd be $22 million, but the 1 year he's looking for closer to 14, 15. I'm going to hope that we have our numbers in a healthy enough spot to offer him like a 2-year deal here. I'm trying to go pretty short term on a lot of these offers, hoping we have the money for all this to fit. So I'm going to offer to 5 of these players. Hernandez and Lewis will let test. And then we'll fill out this staff at the same time, and I'll show you who we end up with. Vladimir Guerrero has exercised his option. So he's opted in. I think that is going to put him on the trade block then, because I feel like we're prepared to move on. The postseason really showed that he's not the same player that he once was. And I think that, you know, at this salary, this would be a good situation for another team to take a chance on him to bounce back from that. And his regular season was good. So I think I'm going to look to trade Vladdy. Right now, the Rockies are offering a better deal to Tom France. I wanted him to become our manager. And the options are already getting a little bit thin if you want to get good boosts with A attribute grade. Free agency has begun. We see players like Walker Buehler have become available. I have to set our 40-man roster, and guys like Julian Rodriguez are actually Rule 5 eligible now. So I can't let him leave that way. When I began this series, I thought I'd be offering some of our best young stars deals like the Braves have done with Ronald Acuna, Ozzie Albies, Spencer Strider. I'm sure there's a longer list. And I've not done it to anybody but Tyler Soderstrom. And although I don't need to do it quite yet, and it will, you know, make things a little tougher short term, I think I actually want to give that deal now to Yusniel Cruz. Seeing the kind of impact he can make, he is an unbelievable talent. And I want to keep him around as long as I can. If you want to go the full 15 years, though, you're already going to start paying him $24 million. I kind of like the sweet spot looking more at 10 years. This $20.7 million a year will make him one of the higher paid per year players we've had in the entire series. And we've gotten to this point with basically nobody above 20. That's what Vladdy and Logan Gilbert were at. We're never going to have the greatest budget, but I think Yusniel Cruz has shown he deserves to be at the top of that list. My offer is going to be 11 years, $230 million. So the situation we've run into here is that I've offered most of the tender contracts, and it's eating up a good bit of what we have available. Here are the players eligible for arbitration. Now, I've offered the long-term deal to Yusniel Cruz, and I've been thinking maybe it's time to do the same for Joe Michael. He's 2 years out of free agency, and I know I've spent most of this series delaying these big signings because it would hurt our short-term flexibility and making free agent moves to chase a title. Well, now we have the title, and I think I'm okay having a little bit less money these next 2 years, but opening up a very long window, having Joe Michael, Yusniel Cruz, those two cornerstone players, to see what that could bring to us long term. So I think I want to offer the big deal now to Joe Michael, and I'm thinking of going 10 years here. And I feel like I had the Yusniel Cruz deal balanced, but if I backload this deal, it might create a little bit more room for us in the short term. Down the road, it might hurt, but let's have a little bit more flexibility during the younger years for these two. And maybe I should backload both of them and just accept that in 10 years, we might not have much money. Until then, we might pick up a few rings. So here's what we got then. $295 million over 10 years for Joe Michael. That would take him to age 33. He'd still have a chance to maybe cash in again for a $100+ million contract. That's my offer. Now, if I offer that, the pending offers is nearly at the available budget. The ideal thing to do then would be to trade Vladimir Guerrero now. But the problem is if I want to get prospects in return, well, those tender contracts haven't even been dished out yet. So the only players under contract are veterans with long-term deals. I want money off the books. I need cheap prospects in return. So that $17 million is kind of stuck right now, and Vladdy picking up that option is really hurting our situation at the moment. So I'm going back to Yusniel Cruz, and I want to try backloading his deal as well. It'll take a few minutes to get there. And if we're going to go up to $20 million a year when we could have him playing for like 3, 4, or 5, then we better just backload it as well. So here's going to be the offer then to use Neil Cruz, $228 million over 11 years. So the pending offers, it's still pretty close to our available budget. For a long time, I thought we'd give a long-term deal to Aaron Don, and now, after last season, taking a pretty significant step back and having a really bad postseason, definitely not thinking about it right now. We'll just have to see what the future ends up holding here, but I just want to offer him the arbitration. Geloff on 1 year wants about 3.4. I wonder if we could do better than that through arbitration. Now, we're going to let Daniel Susac just go instead of making him a $2 or $3 million paid backup catcher. Hasn't done much for us offensively. Soderstrom's been pretty healthy, so I think it's time to let him go to a new team. Same with Samad Taylor, but I do want to bring back Sweeney here. I'll offer him arbitration closer to 2.5. And then I want to offer to Miguel Cabrera already being arbitration eligible. It feels like already. So I'm going to offer that. And then Andre Palante. This would be for a couple million. I think he's been solid. I do want to bring him back. If I want to offer him a regular deal, we're looking at 2.8. So these arbitration hearings won't happen until the end of the offseason. And then I'll have to make room, you know, if everything here goes the player's way and ends up being more money, I'm going to have to make room later. But I essentially plan to get rid of Guerrero. I'll have $17 million more of room, which really doesn't leave us with any ability to do anything in free agency, especially here right off the bat. So we're in free agency now. Here are the offers we have, and all these players now are free to talk with other clubs. Tom France has accepted the Rockies' offer as manager, so we're starting to fall a little bit behind filling out our coaching staff. Free agency can move really slow, but the Astros have made a big splash with catcher Endy Rodriguez. And the prized free agent of the year looks to be Andrew Painter, who's coming off a year with a 4.6 ERA, and now he's going to make $30 million a year. Interesting move here for the Angels. While we're at it here, I want to think about our 40-man roster, and I want to get Josh Smith up on the 40 because I think he might be that next outfielder to get called up if something were to happen injury-wise. So I don't want him leaving in the Rule 5. I had a feeling he would have been taken. Walker Buehler's a free agent, Brendan Rodgers, but we're not going to be talking to any of the big-name players here. We have our own players to try and keep around. It's a new situation for us in the franchise, and still at a snail's pace, free agency moves along, and I'm still getting turned down by a lot of coaches. Hey, our available budget is going down now. I wonder if that's because we're getting some of the coaching staff taken care of. We're still needing a manager and a third base coach. You know, in a lot of these years, I've just tried to bring in the absolute top coaches I could, but now it's like, I don't know, I kind of do want to save a little bit of money if I can, like $500,000 or $1 million here or there. I think we're going to be running up to our budget this year. So every bit, you know, is going to be necessary. And it looks like we have a manager. I must have misread the previous deal. And the Rangers are offering us a trade. They want Marco Da Silva for Rick Herrera. And I got to say, I like the ratings here for him. He throws a four-seam, change-up, curve slider. Definitely has the stamina to be a starter. This is not terrible, honestly. You know, I look at our starting pitcher situation, and obviously there aren't a ton of, like, high B-rated players. So where would he slot in then? Herrera is currently a 71. So that puts him with guys like Enriquez, and he's got B potential. So is it worth it losing De Silva? Yeah, I guess we have a few in the high 60s, low 70s. If he were closer, like a 75, 76 might be a different story. De Silva, he is a 69 with A. I might hold on to him for now, but I do have interest in Herrera. And now in this case, they do have some of their prospects under contract, and maybe now that some of those deals have been made, we can look to trade Guerrero. Preferably, it would be in the National League somewhere. And I won't trade him to the Dodgers. The Diamondbacks were offering us a deal that included Tom Richards, a 65 overall switch-hitting first baseman who can play in the outfield, but doesn't really have the defense or speed to do it. That one's also intriguing. Getting a good outfield prospect would kind of be interesting. Like, I feel like we might want to look into some Aaron Don insurance. And let's see Mitchell Durham here. He's only 18 years old. He's a lefty with good contact skills. His ratings are a lot like Don's early in his career. We haven't taken outfielders very high in a while. Samuel Guevara does have a potential. He's, at the 63 overall mark. Then there's Jesse Rivera, Freddie Haney. It feels like you need to have someone, though, who's ready maybe in 2 years. 2 years might be cutting it close here for Durham. But we have Forrest Battle, and maybe he's our 2 years from now guy. They threw in John Hutchinson. I don't really want him or his $620,000 contract. Cubs certainly have a need here at first base. And I think it's easy to think of like these A prospects of being like slam dunk, like in Madden when you take a superstar in the first round or whatever. But, a 63 overall is going to take a really long time to make an impact. And even then, it's not guaranteed just because of high potential. This game plays a little differently. Mainly, I want to just get the salary off of the books here. I'd be interested in Durham and a reliever. If you focus only on Vladdy's postseason success, then this seems like an imbalanced trade in our favor, but really, a 92 overall first baseman who is probably going to be better than his postseason numbers last year. I'm okay with this. Guerrero's been with us since the early days in this franchise. He was one of our first big splashes, and he did hit a lot of home runs with us. His last 130 or so came in Oakland, helped us win a ring, helped us get to that point, and now we're going to make a move, and he's traded to the Chicago Cubs. And in the Central, where the teams don't spend money there, a move like that could really vault the Cubs to the top of that division. Now our pending offers are basically at the budget. If I have to go higher for some of these players, it's going to get really close. I do think I need to prioritize Vargas a bit. His regular seasons have been really good. That on-base slugging combination, I think, is pretty important to keep around, but we have the best offer so far. There were 5 players on this list earlier. That must mean that Waldichuk accepted the deal. And there he is. Ken Waldichuk, now with a 2-year contract. He'll stay put. We already know we're bringing back the same exact rotation next year. That's a really good start for the title defense. We have to set our 40-man rosters for Rule 5 protections. So one last look there. I'll risk losing some of these guys. Actually, I don't want to lose Carrasco after just acquiring him, so I do want him on the 40-man. But actually, I have a long list of relievers here. I think I'm going to risk it. I don't think anyone's going to pick up a 69 overall reliever, but maybe I'll be surprised. Still trying to get a third base coach. Clark Schmidt to the Phillies, 3 years, $23 million. And this tells us we re-signed Franmil Reyes. So he's coming back as well for another year as the DH. Joe Michael yet to take his monster contract offer, and Yusniel Cruz still. I might have to increase that. That bar could still go up. You know how long it takes to make the number high? We already have too many players on our roster, so we're going to be releasing Derek Patterson. David Richardson, a 5-year deal with the Royals. I'm pretty sure I remember him from really early in this series. There we go. We got Vargas back as well. That was a big one. Teams were trying to bring him in. So now we have Miguel Vargas. Dylan Carlson, Luis Arraez still out there. Oh, this is a big one, everybody. Did I just let Joe Michael become a free agent? I offered him the big deal. I didn't offer him the arbitration salary. I guess that's why he's showing up there now. I can't lose Joe Michael. There's a lot of details here to managing things in MLB, and that's one of those things I always forget, is I still have to offer arbitration. Bubba Thompson gets a big deal from the Angels. And now we have Joe Michael under contract. All right, it's happened. The big 10-year contract all the way until 2039. It's backloaded, so it starts off as a $17.7 million salary all the way up to 41 late in his career, but it had to be done for the 2-time Cy Young Award winner. And we're still waiting to see what ultimately happens with Yusniel Cruz. The way everything is right now, this would be our starting lineup. Not the order, but basically who would be there. Manny Reyes taking over at first base would be the exciting thing to happen. And then we don't have Carlson or Arraez right now, but we do have Geloff who could play second base. And then we'd have to sort out our bench, of course. So I'm going to move guys like Robert Puason there. Puason and Muncy, good infielders. Then you got Cedeno here who can get called up to be the backup catcher. And then you just have to find an outfielder there, and it's either Carlson coming back and we sort it out, or someone like Josh Smith, Deshaun Knowles. Not really that worried about it. I do have some interest here in George Valera. It's just, do I really need to make the move? He's as well-rounded a player as you can really find here. He offers solid defense, some contact, some power. He can pinch run. In his career, he's, been performing like a platooning outfielder. He's actually got really good WAR. His ISO's been good the last 2 years, so he's hit for some power. But if we have Carlson, then that's kind of unnecessary. So it really depends if these deals get taken or not. Although I might be able to save a little money. We just know what Carlson's done the last couple postseasons. Ooh, Jackson Chourio is going to the Mariners. So we're going to see him. Michael Kopech to the Angels. Big catcher signing with Henry Davis to the Brewers. Now we got the MLB Draft Lottery and the Cardinals getting the #1 pick. They already had the best odds at winning it. And there are all the records from last year. So Vladdy goes to a 500 Cubs team. I can see them making a big move to try to get above the other teams there. So now we're in the Rule 5 draft. And a handful of players go in the first round, but none are out of our organization. And we certainly don't have any room to pick anybody up. I just wanted to see who was out there. You guys can have fun. Great, we did end up losing Jose Carrasco. I didn't think that would happen, but of course it did. The Reds picked him up. We still got the really good outfielder, though, in that trade. Now we should start to get things moving along here with the remaining free agents. Dylan Carlson's out here with some interest from other teams, but we've still made the strongest offer. And the White Sox have made a trade. They'll pick up Nolan Gorman, adding some pop into their lineup for a couple pitchers and a first baseman. So that's an interesting move. Luis Arraez has returned. And so has Dylan Carlson. It just took a while, but here we are. I still have another move I want to make. I have wanted to trade Kendrick Haynes for a little while now. There are some other relievers I'd like to call up, and I just think some of the inconsistent play from him, although like the stats look good, I've just felt ready to move on. He gives up, last year he gave up a lot of ill-timed home runs, and I just think we have better options to call up. So I want to make room and trade him to the White Sox here for mainly Darryl Voss, who's a second baseman who can also play the entire outfield. And then I'm going to throw Paul Mosen into this deal and one of their minor league closers in Timothy Francis. So that's going to be another move for us. Not a ton of roster turnover this year, and really I'm not looking outside the organization for much at all. I haven't added any free agents just because I don't think I need to at all. The roster is so solid. And also the money. I was worried about that part. So final moves being made here, and now the arbitration hearings. I historically have not done a good job at winning these. We lost the hearing for Andre Palante, so he's going to make $2.7 million. Zach Geloff won his hearing for $3.3. In most cases, though, these numbers are better than the one-year offers they wanted. So I'm still getting roughly what I wanted, even if it's $100,000 or $2,000 more to get these players back. But I like to win one. Don's going to make 4.6. Yeah, we lost them all, it looks like. Man, Royce Lewis just picked up a 5-year, $46 million deal for doing very little for us. There's a Randy Arozarena deal. He goes to the Yankees, along with Cedric Mullins, just picking up outfielders from their division rivals. I love it. And then we're just left here. Did I not offer a deal to Josh Smith? I meant to, Josh, my bad. However, Yusniel Cruz has not taken his 11-year deal, and we're getting close to the end here. He won't take 228 over 11. Every time I want to get to the right number here, it takes multiple minutes. I don't know if there's a shortcut to like increasing this, but I don't know it if there is. So I'm looking to make this offer count then. He already turned down one in this neighborhood, and now we're going to 235. And Yusniel Cruz has accepted our second big-time offer of the offseason. All we cared about was keeping the two superstars that led us to a World Series title around. We've accomplished that. The future looks incredibly bright for Yusniel Cruz, and I'm putting a lot into how he played during the postseason and in September. Hoping there's a lot more of that now for a decade plus. It's still telling me we have like $20 million in available budget, so this must not have gone quite as badly as I thought it could. We have an entire coaching staff, and I'm pretty happy with it overall, even if I didn't get my first option for every spot. I'm okay carrying this money into the season, though, because the only way I was really going to use it was on multi-year contracts, and I really wasn't interested in signing free agents for multiple years. We've had a team that we've managed to keep mostly together, and more players are ready to come up from AAA and take over a couple other roles. So everybody else can partake in free agency. And we've made it now to spring training with our championship roster nearly intact. I'd anticipate this year that we see Doug Romero, maybe somebody like Gregorio Uribe stick to the big league roster. Uribe, I thought might a couple years ago, but I think now is the year. Excited to see how Manny Reyes handles the everyday first base role. This has been something we've kind of had in the works now for a couple years, and it's perfect timing. Robert Puason should be on the bench. We'll see if there are any moves made here. But when you look at possibly Zach Geloff coming off the bench. He's obviously shown a lot higher level of play than the other backup infielders we've had. So really there isn't much to say other than Guerrero has been traded, and now Joe Michael, Yusniel Cruz, they are not going anywhere for a very long time. Let's run it back. I wish I could tell you exactly what future episodes are going to look like, but I want to do a lot of simulating. I basically have given us close to a month deadline here, and I want to cover a lot of ground and see what happens with this team and maybe play some critical playoff games. And I suppose with a more sped up format, it can give me an idea if there's something I can do over the summer here with MLB 24, because I don't anticipate doing another 100 plus episode franchise this year. I just don't see how it would fit with everything I'm doing at the moment, but I want to do something. I don't know if it'd be disappointing to go through the entire regular season next episode. I really don't know. So if you'd like to leave some feedback on what you think would be most satisfying to watch going forward, let me know. I'm planning on managing this team the best I can and getting us through some more years, though. I want to close with the career stats for everybody that's on our roster right now. Not many high home run numbers. It's still a fairly young roster, only a handful of veterans, including Franmil Reyes, Luis Arraez, Dylan Carlson. For pitchers, Joe Michael has 60 victories, 860 innings pitched. He struck out 860 batters. In baseball, we love our stats, we love our milestones. I'm excited to see what he can really put together in a full career. That's going to be pretty special to watch unfold. And for the rest of the talent on this team as well, and maybe some players we haven't even started talking about yet, I'm sure by the time we're done, we'll have gone another 15 or so total seasons. But that'll do it for today, everybody. I'd love to see your feedback down below as we attack the rest of the A's franchise. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you all for the support and all of the great comments throughout this series. We'll see what the future holds for our A's next time. Have a great day, everybody.